morning. We've changed the program round a little because of the technical issues. So if you were expecting to hear another talk, I'm sorry, you have to put up with me. This is the elephant in the room, and in actual fact, although my talk is about children's books, and this doesn't relate to any of the children's books, this elephant, or these elephants, really do come through this room regularly, once a year. They, the lodge built its lodge on the elephant path, and the elephants haven't learned that there's a lodge there, and they walk through the lodge yearly to go and collect the mangoes on the other side. And in actual fact, I've written a book about that called Elephant Walk. It's the pathways that elephants take. But my slideshow is about how over the years, can you hear me at the back? Yeah, good. Over the years, animals, exotic animals, have been used as trade and leverage, and from time immemorial. And so I'm going to quickly race through these slides. I'm not a historian. Is Veronica in the room? No, she's not, because she would catch me on with lots of dates and things. Lots of dates and things. This is called The Ghost Lectern by Philip Stark. So if I'm wrong with a few dates, please do forgive me. This is not my. This is not where I studied history. There's only one name I know that's appearing in my slide, and that's Vasco da Gama. So my story starts with elephants, and the first elephant that was taken, or not the very first, there were elephants before, but long time in Roman times had come to Europe. But in 1513, King Manuel I of Portugal was an incredibly powerful king. He just opened up half the world through sending his sailors to Brazil and to India. And in fact, that's where Vasco da Gama comes in, because he was the very, very first sailor to actually round the Cape and to get to India. And prior to that, everyone had gone overland. So King Manuel sent Pope Leo X, an Indian elephant, to secure his spice trade. And the elephant took Rome by surprise. It walked up the streets, came in front of this huge audience with the Pope, knelt down, apparently, it must have been a trained elephant, trumpeted 3 times, and the saying is it also spouted water. I think that must be untrue, because where did it get the water from? But anyway, he caused a sensation in Rome, and the Pope even got, at the time, Raphael to draw him, and later on to paint him. So the Pope was extremely happy. I think King Manuel managed to keep hold of his spice trade, because in that time, 20 years prior, the Pope had passed a treaty and divided the earth into two sovereignties, and you were either from Spain or Portugal, and you could have the spoils of the earth. And so it was very important for Portugal, for the King of Portugal, to keep Spain out as much as possible. So hence the gift. But that wasn't the first elephant to arrive. Charlemagne had received an elephant in the 700s, and again it was for power. He received the elephant from the Caliph of Baghdad, and it was to get more control, or to his exchange of gifts, so that he could have control over India and Muslim Spain. So all through history, we've had elephants being sent around the world, and this particular elephant comes from some such beautiful mosaics in Sicily called the Casala del... Oh no, I forgot, I should go back to my notes. But I went there, and a landslide covered the mosaics. It is the largest example of a mosaic floor in the whole of Europe. And the landslide has preserved these mosaics, so that up until 1927, I think that's when it was discovered, this is in the middle of Sicily, and incredibly bright, the most beautiful tesserae. They come from Carthage, and the animals also obviously came from Carthage. So you see the elephant here treading over walkway to the galley, to the Roman galley, and he would have been brought across from Carthage to Ostia outside Rome, and then ultimately to Sicily. I wasn't planning to use this, so I'm sort of what I'm holding. And again, it's lovely to see a rhinoceros being on that floor. And here you actually, the delicacy of the portrait, you see the rhinoceros walking through water to the sea to get to the gangway. And he looks very much like Dührer's rhinoceros, who's the story of the rhinoceros in my story. And we have the lion, or at least the tiger, and the tiger had obviously not come from Carthage, the tiger was from India. And you can see this tiger has recently had puppies, and they did a most extraordinary thing. I haven't put that slide up. They actually would put mirrors in front of the tiger, and the tiger would become confused and see his own reflection in the mirror and think it was his cub. And that's the way, or the cubs, and that's the way they managed to capture these creatures. To sort of, and there, 1,000 years later, we have the leopards, again in Sicily, and these are also Byzantium influence, but the mosaics that are shown in the palace, the royal palace at Palermo. I don't know if anyone has seen that, but also if you buy Artesia soap, heaven forbid that we should not buy Artesia soap and all those beautiful, it always has this symbol as well. So some people have called them cheetahs, but they actually are leopards. And that was, the renovation was done by Roger II. The room is actually named after him, the Sala de Ruggero. Is that the right Italian? Ruggero? I don't know. Anyway, the room of Roger. And Roger II was a Norman. So he conquered Sicily literally 7 years after William the Conqueror conquered England. So it was simultaneous timing. And he took the palace over from the Arab ruler at the time. And in actual fact, this palace in Palermo is the oldest palace that still exists in the whole of the world. Other palaces have been knocked down or rebuilt, but the palace in Palermo is the very, very oldest. Not that that's part of our story, but anyway. So, Henry I built a 7-mile, he was the son of William the Conqueror, am I right? I don't know, I'm sure. Anyone correct me, please. He was the son of William the Conqueror, and they had a royal palace at Woodstock, and had been given all these animals, and amongst them, a lynx up top with those pointed ears. I have a lynx that lives on my sand dune outside my house in South Africa. He comes and goes, but he's wonderful. My son thinks I'm just imagining it, and I've had a glass of wine too many. He says it's a cat, but it's a lynx. And leopards, and even a crocodile, a Nile crocodile, was kept at Woodstock. And he built a 7-mile wall around Woodstock. And one could say that he was the inventor of the first official menagerie. Afterwards, of course, in Henry III's time, there was a huge menagerie kept at the Tower of London. And that's the lions were given as gifts. And there was a bear from the King of Norway, and the bear was allowed to fish in the Thames. I'm not sure if he was kept on a long chain or how it worked. That he actually went into the Thames and caught his own supper. And of course, those lions of Henry III actually have become the symbol, the 3 lions on, that is the symbol on the rugby jerseys and the cricket shirts, I think. But those are the 3, symbolically, the heraldic lions from the Tower of London. We go back to Manuel. In 1515, he received another gift. The elephant had also come from India, but now he received a rhino. He had wanted to build a fort in Goa, in India, so that he could control his domain. And the caliph at the time didn't want the fort to be built, but in sort of a pledgey gift, he sent him this rhino. Now just imagine, the rhino was sent from India literally only 17 years after Vasco da Gama sailed around that Cape route. So it's an extraordinary thing to have done, to have brought a rhino from Goa right the way down past Madagascar. Apparently they stopped for a while in the Zambezi estuary and sailed on, and didn't stop at the Cape because the Cape at that time didn't have a harbour or anything of the kind, and it was also very stormy. They stopped at St. Helena and then came in to Brisbane. So it was breeded. It was the first rhino, I think, that possibly had been seen in Europe since that rhino that you saw at in Palermo. So it was extraordinary. People were thinking, is it a unicorn? All sorts of stories were made up about it. And there's just, sorry, I should have gone on with that slide before. Of course, Dura's rhino always looked a bit strange, but that's only because he himself hadn't seen the rhino. He got reports from other people and drew it. So we have that, you can't see it in this picture, yes you can. He has a funny little horn coming out of the back of his neck. And also we see him as a very armoured creature. But in actual fact, the rhinos from India are different to the ones in Africa, and they do look armoured. So it's a fairly accurate drawing. And here we have the rhino arriving, and my story, the most famous rhinoceros. An elephant over there, and this is a story set in 1515. The illustrations are by Simona Mulizzani. She's well known in Italy, not so well known here, but delightful. And how was a king going to tell the people how important he was? How was he going to show them that he had this power right across the world, that he owned colonies right around the world, and that he was actually, King Manuel I was one of the most influential and wealthy kings of medieval times. And he needed to show the people how important he was. So what do you do when you don't have social media, when you don't have Instagram, and you don't have Twitter or X or anything to show your importance? Well, you have parades. And so he organized many, many parades where his wife could walk around in her most beautiful jewels and silks, all the silks imported from India, all the rubies coming across from India, and all these exotic animals. Now he had lots of children, and these are true children. The story is historically true, although I've made up a few things, obviously, that I haven't been able to. It's a creative story about history. Beatrix is in the front. She was his second daughter, and all the other children are riding in the parade. I don't know that they rode those exact animals, but I just designated animals to various boys. And the eldest boy was an elephant, so I thought the eldest boy chose the elephant to ride. So there he is, just behind his mother and his father. And going around here, the other girl riding a giraffe is the eldest sister. And in my story, she's very prudish and sort of disciplines Beatrix the whole time, because Beatrix is this wild child. Dura's drawing became heraldic. You saw it on in all sorts of places. This is, if you've been to Pisa, this is on the door of the cathedral into Pisa Cathedral in bronze on the outside. It's actually still used to this day if you visit the Chiswick Physic Garden on the South Gate, which was the Thames used to come right up to the South Gate at the Chiswick Garden. And it's part of their herald, part of their badge, and with Apollo at the bottom and the rhino at the top. And I think that's extraordinary that here we work so hard not to have rhino horn used for medicine, and the apothecaries still keep it in their badge. It just seems a very strange thing. I'd like to sort of speak to someone who belongs to the Guild of Apothecaries and ask why the rhino still is there. So it's also used in Siena. It's one of the flags, the contrada, and it's Dura's rhino that's used there, the image. It's not an African rhino. So here I have a little girl. I saw her in the newspaper, and I wanted something to show that the king was bringing exotic animals from Brazil as well, and I decided to use a marmoset. And while I was actually writing the story, I found this picture. And it's so wonderful when you're writing and suddenly something suits what you actually have chosen to write about. And Simona first put her on the head of Beatrix, and I thought that was really lovely. But somehow in the production, that image disappeared, as it does when you have ruffs and the final picture comes out. But you'll see in all the pictures, when you see Beatrix, you will always see the little marmoset. And apart from having parades, you also had to show your power by actually having combats. Now, it wasn't man pitted against an animal like in Roman times, but they decided, Pliny apparently said that the rhino and the elephant are meant to fight. And so the king decided to put them in an arena. And you can just imagine the noise and how terrified the animals were. They used to have firecrackers, sort of sparklers like, but making a bit more noise to goad the animals on. And everyone would have been shouting, fight, fight, fight. And sometimes when I'm in schools, I try and get the children to make that noise of the arena. And then they'll say, fight, fight, fight. And I think, oh, the teachers will say, how can you tell children to say, fight, fight, fight? But anyway, that's what was happening. And of course, the animals did not fight. And why didn't they fight? Because they had come from India, and they are grass eaters and leaf eaters, and they're not carnivorous. And why would they want to fight each other? They've met each other on the plains of India, or in actual fact, more jungly in India than Africa, because the rhinoceros is in a more jungle-like territory there. So at this combat, of course, they didn't fight. And everyone got bored with the rhino very quickly, and he was sent away and left Lisbon. And that's why I tried to explain that these animals were really just pawns, and off he went to the Pope. In actual fact, he drowned on the way. That doesn't form part of my book, because the main part of the book is for children, and you have to make it child-friendly for little children. But there is a note at the back that tells us about the fate of the rhino. The other, moving quickly on to Egyptian times, when Muhammad Ali, not the fighter, but he was a Turk from Albania, and he was in control of Egypt. And he decided it would be expedient to send 2 giraffes, one to England and one to France, to Charles X, who was back in power in France. And the one that went to England was quite poorly. In fact, by the time it got to England, they had to hang it in a sling to keep it, couldn't support itself on its own legs. But Zarafa caused a stir in Europe, and it sailed across the Mediterranean and got to Marseille, and they didn't know how to transport it to Paris, and eventually she walked to Paris. And here we are. This is actually the English giraffe, and this painting belongs to the Queen and is in her gallery. So this is probably the English giraffe. I didn't cut off her legs, by the way. She does have legs, but it just fitted better to the PowerPoint. So with Giraffe, I was really very, very excited, because it was turned into a play by the Little Angel Theatre, and I think it was given funding by the National Lottery and also the Arts Fund. And that was very exciting. And why they took it on is because they felt it exemplified what refugees might find when they come to our country, and the loneliness and the fact that everything is foreign. And so it was chosen specifically for that reason, because the giraffe is this symbol of someone who is from a foreign place and has been sent from up the river, over the sea, over the mountains, here, there, and everywhere. So it was a perfect story to fit in, and that's why I think they managed the funding. It was wonderful. I nearly slotted in the whole of the video, but I thought that it would take up too much time. The giraffe was magnificent. There were two. There was a little giraffe, and he actually walked. It was articulated. And then the much, much taller giraffe. And here I am. And Jane, of course, Jane Ray did the wonderful illustrations for that book. And again, the words there, they looked out over Paris on nights when the air was balmy, and they turned their faces southwards, and on the warm air, they felt the kiss of Africa. Now, I'm just going to give you 3 quick anecdotal slides. In the middle of the war, Churchill decided he needed a few platypuses, and he wanted to keep a good relationship with Australia, and he thought, what better way to use Australia's huge and famous logo of the platypus. So he wanted 6 platypuses sent across to England. And the Australian Prime Minister at the time declined that, but Churchill was persistent, as I think we all know his character is like that, and he managed to get 1 brought across, because he thought it would be very good for the morale of the people in Britain in the middle of the war. Unfortunately, that platypus died 4 days out of Liverpool because a German submarine was discovered under the boat, and the sonar in the boat actually, they think, killed the sonic charges killed the platypus. But it seems such a selfish thing, I think, to take 6 platypuses or 1 platypus from a foreign country and bring it across just for the purpose of boosting the morale of the people. The Queen, of course, always received animals. And here we have the most beautiful panther and sloth that was brought across from Brazil. In the beginning, she used to send them to the London Zoo, but since, I don't know what year, she decided that she didn't want to keep the animals in London. It wasn't really fair to bring them across, so whenever she was gifted something, she asked the country to actually keep the animal. I know that happened with an Aguni cow that was going to be sent to England. It was left in South Africa. So she decided not to keep the animals and to have them in the zoo any longer. And our final little anecdotal story is, of course, the pandas are huge trade for political power. Here we have Li Qingchan, and he, or Chu Chan, I think you said. Did you have any Chinese speakers in the room? Mandarin speakers. How would I pronounce his surname? Thank you very much. I did write it down and I did practice. So at the time he was the vice premier, and he did a deal because Norway had given a Nobel Peace Prize to one of the Chinese dissidents, and he was very unhappy about it. So he took the fishing deal away from Norway and asked Scotland if he could do a fishing deal with them, and lent them 2 pandas. And I think those pandas are due to go back now, aren't they, in December? They've been here a little longer. China always owns its pandas, and they are always returned. And in actual fact, when Obama did the deal with Taiwan, an arms deal, the Chinese were so upset about it that they took 2 pandas back from the US. So there's this constant, anyway, those are totally anecdotal. And just finishing off with this slide, I'm just aware of the time, and there are the 2 books that I've been talking about. And I'd like to just say that in this room, there are 3 people that are very important to me, and as a writer, I couldn't have done many things without them. And one is the lady who introduced me, and that's Carol Thompson. She has done 2 of my books, Storm Dragons, which is in the shop if any of you are interested, and also My Daddy's a Silly Monkey. So thank you very much, Carol. I haven't written them up now because they don't form part of the menagerie story. But also, I would like to thank Janetta, because all these books have been produced by IBBY Books, and Janetta has been my editor for years and years and years, long ago when she worked for Francis Lincoln. So she and I have worked together and made wonderful picture books, I think. And the last person, of course, is Laura Cecil, who was my agent, and without Laura, I would never have met either Carol or Janetta. So thank you very much, Laura. It was wonderful working with you. And one last thing before I hand over. I'm going to just talk loudly. If any of you are librarians or teachers in the room, all my picture books have handmade books to go with them. This is the one on Zarafa. And what it means is I can visit a school and put the book out, and it's, oh, I'm showing you the wrong side, sorry, and show you the research work I did for Zarafa, the hairstyles the people adopted, the maps, and then inside I have made extra little pockets for ideas for teachers, and this would be the map of his journey. I have to put this. I'm going to leave these books out for anyone who'd like to see them. And it's not that the children would do such exact work, but I think it's just as an idea of what you can do with children and how they could see how far the journey is. This sort of demonstrates exactly how long. It was 2,000 miles from where the giraffes were picked up to the Mediterranean, to Alexandria. So, I mean, even that journey, just up the Nile, I'm knocking over the ghost again. This one is even bigger. It is the story of the rhino, and it shows you the beginning, shows you the map, or the place where the rhino came from. That's Goa. It was so lovely to do this research. It doesn't actually come into the book. And that's what's so exciting about writing. You just keep on discovering things that don't sort of appear in your writing, but they give you such rich background. So that's Goa, and at the end of the book is Lisbon. So I've got the connection, the start and the end. And somewhere in this book, there's also another little secretive book. It's all about, oh, there it is. It's in a pocket there, and you can also take that out. And it's the parade, again, in a fold out. And the drawings of Simona, and also I had to find out who Beatrix was and what she really looked like, what hairstyle she had. And then a whole history of dye and the color red. Because, of course, cochineal had just been discovered, and you had to be really, really wealthy to be able to wear red. So it was kept for cardinals and royalty, and only the wealthy. So I tried to make the book sort of interesting for myself, as well as interesting for children, and for teachers and librarians, and to inspire teachers to actually find out how children can be caught up in research and can actually enjoy journeys and the whole idea of animals being brought from far, far away to another country just for the pleasure and for the political needs of rulers. So thank you very much.